Previously on agentpalmer.com, from Hiroshima to the moon is an incredible atomic time capsule. Brazen Careerist makes a dated but important case for finding a mentor, and I'm sure there will be much more music from 12 Days in June in our future. This is the Palmer Files, episode 138, featuring my wife, Stefanie Stershic. During the episode, we discuss how we met, our long-distance digital courtship, and much, much more. Are you ready? Let's do the show! Hello and welcome to the Palmer Files. I'm your host, Jason Stershic, also known as Agent Palmer, and on this 138th episode is my wife, Stefanie Stershic, formerly Stephanie Muniz, who was on episode 115, 50 Questions with Stefanie. Well, now she's back, as my wife, to talk about how we became husband and wife. During this episode, we'll discuss how we met and how distance didn't keep us apart, how we decided to start dating, and the first time we met, plus our first real date. All of that and more is coming your way shortly. But first, remember that if you want to discuss the episode as you listen or afterwards, you can find all related ways to contact my lovely wife, Stefanie, and myself in the show notes. Don't forget you can see all of my writings and rantings on agentpalmer.com, and of course, email can be sent to thepalmerfiles@gmail.com. So without further ado, let's figure out how all this happened. Let me take you back to 2015.
Okay.
You and I first meet on Twitter.
Yep.
Because we're listening to the same podcast.
Yeah, we were hanging in the same Twitter circle, all surrounding that particular podcast.
Yeah, 7 Days a Geek.
Yep.
We can name drop podcasts here.
It still exists in some form or another.
Yeah, in some form or another. Yeah, there were a few other shows as well.
Yeah.
Did you think that this annoying guy from across the country who tweeted you would be your husband?
Not at the time, no. I don't think anyone thinks that far ahead, especially because we didn't know each other.
No.
We were just two fans of the same podcast that were tweeting each other, who had also then had discussions with the hosts of that show. And
Jay and Grant. We can be specific. It's not... I know it's a secret agent thing I put on, but you should know me well enough now, wife.
Maybe they don't want to be mentioned. You got to respect other people's privacy. But
I will after they do.
Okay. Okay.
Have you heard the latest on hiatus?
No.
They're sharing everything. It's fine.
Okay.
We can at least give out their names. They did bring us together.
In a roundabout way, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we helped out on the first Podtoberfest. That's when we actually spoke.
Yeah.
2015. During the prep for that.
Because they had come up with this crazy idea. They were going to stream for 24, or they were going to podcast for 24 hours straight.
Yep.
Live.
Yep.
So people could chat. There were... was it Mixler already at that time, or was it a different thing?
Yep. Mixler had started that spring or whatever.
So...
It was in March that the idea was March. It was in early spring that idea was hatched.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I were a part of the first. We were in the chat in Mixler for the first live Mixlers.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what was before that, but I had just come to them at that point.
Yeah.
Don't try and think of it. It won't exist anymore, probably.
Well, we know Mixler doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, it does.
So no, it went away.
No, it still exists.
I don't think so.
Yeah. I checked my login within the last few months, so it would have been very recently that
then
it
doesn't exist the way it did before.
Okay, I'm not going to argue with it because whatever, it's fine.
I just remember getting an email saying it was going away or turning into like something else,
or it was changing, maybe perhaps.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't mean it's going away.
Well, anyway. No, but I think it was going behind a paywall.
Well, Twitter doesn't exist anymore as it was when we got together.
True.
So that's
true. But yeah, no, and I mean we weren't that heavily involved in the first Podtoberfest. But
yes, we were. Well, one of us was.
Well, I just remember doing more like I was kind of what you would consider now like a chat moderator. Like I was in chat, I was monitoring things, I was like shooting information.
Were you
and
not
stuff.
in any of those Skype meetings for the first one?
Not really. I remember calling into one thing, but I don't remember it being like a separate Skype meeting. I think it was calling in.
Well, you called into the show once or twice when it was live.
Yeah, I called into the show.
That was beforehand. That wasn't Podtoberfest yet.
Yeah, but I don't think I was involved in really any of the behind the scenes Skype meetings.
Somehow I was.
Well,
I don't remember.
Big surprise that you were included. Okay. You weaseled your way in there. You're like, I want to help.
No, whatever. And
I was still too shy. I was like, yeah, I'll hang out. I'll help things. I supplied
all right, well,
information.
that's a good place to start then. You're too shy, and yet you gave me your phone number.
Yeah.
Big mistake.
Well,
for
spoilers.
For spoilers during the first Podtoberfest, because if anybody got disconnected or if anything happened, I wanted to connect with you directly because you and I were remote.
Somehow
helping.
Along the way, even though I wasn't like that heavily involved, I still became like a remote producer, even though it wasn't technically remote. I was remote help because I was in Arizona at the time. Half the people were in Michigan. You were here in Pennsylvania, and Bill was in New York. Although, he is.
Bill was in
He's
Michigan
normally in New
year.
York, but he was the only one that went out that year.
Yes.
That's right. He was there in person for the whole thing, and it was, I think, actually Bill's idea. Bill wanted to be able to get a hold of us. And then we wanted to get a hold of each other. Or
I know you're thinking of it wrong.
No.
Because here's the thing.
No.
You and I
remember
we're in connection during the whole thing. We were texting back and forth when things were going off the rails or they missed an ad break or whatever. We couldn't get
a hold of Bill.
We were supposed to be able to text Bill.
That was the issue.
If you're listening, we still love you.
We do.
But we couldn't get a hold of you at all.
So actually it's Bill's fault then. Because we couldn't get a hold of Bill, I gave you my phone number. It's all Bill's fault. But yeah, no, we exchanged phone numbers so that we could talk
specifically during the event, the 24 hours.
And it was more specifically when there was stuff that was happening that was either heavily involving like audience participation or
it was just behind the scenes
or keeping track of was that funny or did they do that or tracking data like this thing happened.
Yeah, we were. Don't forget that we were still running hashtag wars or hashtag games.
Yeah.
Every hour, 2 hours. So I don't know if it was every hour. I don't think we did 24, but there were a lot of them, and you were running a lot of that stuff. And then all I know is that after that 24 hours, you made the mistake of picking up the phone when I would call you after the event.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
Although, I mean, it wasn't immediate. I guess the other thing to mention is that you had just broken up with your then.
No, I was in the process.
Time. Like
no,
it was happening.
It had unraveled during Podtoberfest. Yes.
Yeah. So it wasn't like you called me right away and was like, "Hey, what's up?"
No, I'm just saying we were friends. We were.
I would say we.
I wasn't flirting with you straight off the bat.
No, you weren't. That's not what I'm saying. But it wasn't that we were like then all of a sudden just chatting like normal. Like we weren't exactly what I would consider friends yet either. We just knew each other because we had done this thing.
We were getting to know each other.
Well, yeah, but that was the point. Like you wanted to get to know me. But I don't think it wasn't necessarily from like.
It sound so sinister.
No, I'm not saying. I'm just saying that you just wanted to. You were wanting to be friendly. It was just you.
Yeah, I mean at that point I had become friends with Bill.
Yeah. It was a friendly
we were
thing.
friends with Dave.
Yeah.
Paula was in the mix. Paul was in the lot of people. Dougie. We were meeting, and Jay and Grant too. Like we were meeting people. We were making genuinely outside of work, whatever that is. This was the first time I got to make friends with people I liked that wasn't just because they were around.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just people you work with.
And I would say that first Podtoberfest brought us all closer together anyway, because we had spent so much time like planning stuff, doing stuff, and then the whole thing, doing the 24 hours. Then afterwards, it was kind of like, there was a little bit of time, but then there was the debrief, like what worked, what didn't work. Well, let's do this again next year kind of thing.
Well, yeah, it took a little bit for that to kick off, and that kicks. I mean,
well, because it was in October.
We recorded it in October. It released in November because Jay was still doing.
Because although it was live, they then decided to release it on their show.
No, he was always going to do it that way.
Yeah,
it was a way to fill out whatever Jay used to call November. He used to just do 31 days of 30 whatever
days of podcasting
in November.
Yeah. And so he would release a lot of the content from the 24-hour stream.
Well, he was doing a lot of it otherwise beforehand, and then this year was that 2015 was the first year he used Podtoberfest to fill it every hour, fill the thing. So he had almost all of the month taken care of.
Mm-hmm. And then you had the holidays, so then that kind of happened, and so I think it was into the early the next year that really then new planning started. I mean, if we're gonna close the book on my old relationship, she moved out in December. Finally. I didn't take it well. No.
And you know that, I think
you'd mentioned it.
Maybe more than some of the other people. And
because we were talking.
We were talking, but I was
treating it like friendly. Like I always like to think that I'm a good listener.
I will
hear
say,
people out.
I don't know if I was interested in you from the beginning that I would have been as honest with you about the things I was going through.
Uh-huh.
But we were just friends.
Yeah.
And there was nothing.
Plus, I'm easy to talk to. Like, people just say that. Like, I feel like people will open up to me whether they would normally do that with other people.
And you were a podcaster. It's not like you couldn't hold, like you wouldn't, maybe not as much as other people or whatever, but like if I told a story, you wouldn't just be like, yeah, uh-huh. Like you would,
I would talk. Yeah.
You would talk.
I wasn't a podcaster at the time. I was just listening. I didn't have a podcast yet. Shortly thereafter.
When does Gotham Lights start?
I want to say
that was 20. You were in it in 2016, so it has to be very shortly.
It started around that time, but I don't think it was during Podtoberfest, that first Podtoberfest.
No, it wasn't during the first Podtoberfest, but I know
it happened shortly thereafter.
When we get to the second Podtoberfest.
Well, because when did Gotham air? Like, did it premiere in the spring of 2016?
I have no. It could have been the fall as well, because Jay and Henno and Neil all tried Gotham Knights. There was
okay, so that was the thing though. Gotham Knights started first.
That probably started.
We took over, stared doing Gotham Lights.
Yeah, which probably
when
happened,
it was already further into the show.
Yeah, that's probably 2016 then.
Yeah.
Because you and I are talking through 2016, the early parts of 2016, and then come, let's say, March, Grant decides we should get the band back together for the next year ahead of time.
The Podtoberfest Part 2.
Yeah, we should do this like with a lot more planning.
Yeah.
And everyone's going to be there.
That was the thing, because they loved having Bill in studio, and they thought we also loved, the feedback we were getting from Steph and Jason. And just having everybody, so they thought, how much better would it be if everyone was there? As many people as we could get, be there in person, help us do this thing live, and have like a big party of it, like just have fun. And what? And everyone
said yes.
Oh, well, yeah.
Except?
I don't remember.
Me.
Oh, that's right. It's true. They reached out to everybody, and
it was a unanimous. Everybody's going, but me. I wavered.
As soon as they said something about it, I was like, yeah, I want to definitely meet these guys in person.
And by the way, it's April when Grant puts out the mandate that like everybody should be in there, and I immediately went maybe.
You went maybe, and I was already looking at flights. I was like, well, how much would it cost for me to fly from Phoenix to Grand Rapids?
And so there are a lot of meetings. Like, this is the part where not even for you and me, but just in general, those meetings, the Skype meetings for the second Podtoberfest with, and you may have been one of the more lucid people in those meetings because, and it's not, we're not talking about drugs. We're not talking about booze. It's just that these meetings start at 7:00 Pacific.
Yeah.
10 o'clock Eastern. And by the way, even though Michigan's in the middle of the country, that's Eastern Standard. So for Jay, Grant, Bill, and myself, we're getting on this Skype call at 10 p.m.
Yep.
And sometimes going till 2 or 3 a.m. I remember just like that's the only thing I remember from any of those meetings.
The meetings devolved quickly.
Yeah. And
they started out like on task and like, well, yeah, we discussed this, we'll work on this, and then it just suddenly devolved into just silliness.
A podcast. It devolved into a podcast.
These meetings started to get recorded.
No, they weren't.
I thought they were.
No,
I thought at some point
they were never recorded. We should have recorded them.
Okay, yeah, I remember somebody saying, we should have.
But at a certain point, it's also like just 2:30 in the morning, and like there's like 3 of us left. Whoever it is, like you, me, and Bill.
Well, I had the easiest time because I was on the West Coast. Like I was in Arizona.
Just like
I was 3 hours behind you guys.
I just remember laughing for hours into the
there
early
was a lot of laughing. Yeah. And of course by that point, I was being heavily involved, like because we were all going to be there, so we all needed to be involved. So everybody
and we were going to do 2 12 hours. We were going to make it slightly bigger and more organized.
Break it up.
We were going to get advertisers
sponsors and it was going to be this whole thing.
Contests and giveaways. Mm-hmm. Yes. And so,
so there was that. There was all that. So we were meeting in these Skype meetings. So you and I were
about once a month though. Like the Skype meetings weren't that regular. Like Bill and I,
they got more regular as the time went on. Yeah.
And so you and I feel like I'm going to try and place this. It's probably June. And you and I are calling and texting on a regular basis. Probably daily. I think it's daily at that point. If not a text, then, it was definitely, if not a call, then a text.
It was definitely kind of a big beginning of summer was.
Well, I remember it was June because I had a work event.
Oh, is that the one where you sent me the picture?
Yeah, I sent you a picture. Well, I sent you a few pictures.
But I think that was the picture. It was the first picture where you were dressed up.
Yeah, I was wearing a suit. I know exactly what. I'm not going to say what the event is because I'm not there anymore. I don't give a crap about the organization. That completely. I have a full like a work event.
But you hadn't really sent me that many pictures. Like you sent me.
It was just like, hey, I'm at a baseball game.
Yeah.
Hey,
it was just kind of normal settings. I mean, I will admit I had Facebook stalked you by that point. And looking at other photos and things.
I mean, at that time, and I never did clean out my ex, so at that point, all it is.
Yeah, but I wasn't even looking at those. Like, I just kind of clicked on the pictures of you, like because Facebook at the time, and I think it still does, had the of you. So it was only pictures of you, and sometimes there were other people in it. Yeah, but I just looked at that basically. I didn't go scrolling through all your photos. I just looked at you.
You didn't go through the posts, by the way, because even at that point, even though I have the blog. I'm not really. I'm more of a. I mean, and we already covered that we had met on Twitter. Really, mm-hmm. So like I was a heavy Twitter user by comparison to what I was doing on Facebook or any of the others.
At that time, I was still heavily on Twitter as well.
So you're not getting. You're getting all of my social activity from Twitter more than anything. Yeah. I don't know what you're seeing on Facebook. I don't remember.
I didn't really look at many of the posts. I basically just went on there, clicked on the photos of you, and was like scrolling through them
because so
because definitely by that point, like my family was curious. Well, at the time I was still living with my mom and my sister.
But we need to stop for a moment and let people know that in 2016, Agent Palmer as the brand is still using Michael Caine for my Twitter and Facebook bios, if not the website logo.
Yep.
And so I haven't given up the ghost as to my real face yet. So just to put it out there, like, you don't, until I send you photos or you Facebook stalk me, you have no idea.
I didn't. No. When we first started talking, I had no idea what you looked like. Because especially during the first Podtoberfest, I only knew I knew the voice. I recognized the voice, and that was it. Because I wasn't in those early Skype meetings. Once we started having the Skype meetings, you were a guy on a Skype screen.
Yeah.
And so I saw you there, but you can't ever really like truly see what somebody looks like. Plus, you were always wearing like a hat or something, or you had your headphones on.
During those meetings, especially in 2016, the early ones, it's a beanie for like Bill, myself, and Grant, and hoodies. We would put up like I don't know. There was just it was just in that's what we were wearing. Yeah. That's what everybody would. So when we get to summer, I sent you a photo. Mm-hmm. I think you asked for it. I feel like, because I had told you I was getting dressed up.
You told me, yes. You told me you were getting dressed up, and yeah, I said, oh, send me a photo, because you said it was suit and tie. So but I'm interested.
So by the time, so that's in June.
Yeah.
By the time we get to August, meanwhile, Podtoberfest is coming up in October. It's August, and a few things have happened. Yeah. One, you and I have started watching movies together.
Yeah.
Before there was an you can stream together, we were just picking a movie on a service and trying to
time it
as best as possible.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, play. And sometimes it would work, and sometimes it wouldn't.
And most of those movies were movies we were watching our classics, so to speak. I don't think we watched any new stuff at that point. We watched Fifth Element that way. Mm-hmm. I genuinely can't remember any of the other stuff we watched. No, I remember that was the first time we watched Fifth Element.
Yeah, we definitely watched, because we discovered that we both had a love of Fifth Element.
Yeah, but so that's happening. There is also, by the time we reach August, there's been at least one all-night phone call for me.
Yeah.
I saw the sun come up. Yeah. You were like, man, it's only 3 a.m. I'm still going to go to sleep or some stuff. And I don't know if that was a Friday or a Saturday into a Saturday.
It was definitely on the weekend.
It was a weekend or a week, whatever. It didn't.
Well, no, it couldn't have been, because didn't you go to work? Like you stayed up and then went to work.
No, I don't think so.
No, was that later?
That was that's further ahead. You and I did some 3. You and I did some 3 a.m.s where I went to work, because you would always be like, look, let's be about like who's the responsible one here. I'm just talking up a storm. I have a podcast. I have a problem talking. And you also at the time, I would say
you don't have a problem talking.
Okay, I have a problem in talking too much. Not shutting up. And I'll ask the question to get the story out of you, and then I'll tell my own.
And if you're on the phone, like it's over. Like you'll just talk and talk and talk and talk. And I'm like, you need to go to sleep.
Yeah, well, because you were aware. Like, I think you were maybe hyper aware of our time difference, because I wouldn't call you. I would bother you in the middle of your afternoon when I got out of work sometimes.
We would text when I was at work.
But genuinely, like, we wouldn't talk until you got back from work.
Yeah.
Which is later in the evening for me, at least, for starters.
Yeah. And it was usually after dinner and stuff like that.
So there was at least one all-nighter in there. I think there was one flu night. I remember.
Yeah.
I think I have a fever, but I don't think I have any drugs that are good. And I think I think I hung up on I think you made me hang up on you. I went to the store and picked up like fresh Tylenol. Because it's very single man problems, right? Like I may have some drugs in the house, but I don't think any of them are good.
Well, and I also say, do you have a thermometer? You're like, no. Like, of course you don't. Because if you had a thermometer, you could check if you had a fever. Yeah. So then I was like, okay, you don't have a thermometer. You don't think you have any drugs. I said, hang up the phone. Go get something. And then you'll be good.
She became my wife, but I think that night it was all right, fine, Mom. It's like, yeah.
It was like, yeah, he's being a typical male. I need to make sure that he doesn't die of the flu. And
here's the thing: when in hindsight, you cared way more than you were letting on, because what happens next? So that happens sometime during the summer. That's a during the summer thing, right?
There were definitely, I think, feelings starting to develop. On both sides.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, we are having these digital dates usually on a Friday night. And I believe it's August, and you got on my case, same as Grant, about
coming to Podtoberfest.
Coming to Podtoberfest, going to Michigan.
Yeah.
And
I had already had my ticket by then. I've requested my time off work. I have a plane ticket. What's up with you?
It was a lot. And so Bill and I are talking, and I said, Bill, I think the only way I'm going is if I drive.
Yeah.
And there was a hedging of bets when I said, Bill, do you want to go with me? Because I felt like, well, they'll be mad at me. Like, I don't know. It was an all or nothing kind of a thing. Like, if I'm the way Bill's getting there, and there was a cutoff point in like September for Bill's plane ticket that no one knew about, I don't think, but Bill and I.
Yeah.
Until now. I mean, obviously we've told this story since.
Yeah. I think also partly it was Bill's way of, if I drive with him, he is guaranteed to go.
I don't know if it was a guarantee. I still don't know there was a guarantee.
Maybe not a guarantee, but I feel like he had talked with Grant and Jay, or just Grant, or whatever. But I think there was some planning or something going on that they said, like, well, if he doesn't want to get on a plane and he wants to drive, he and Bill don't live that far away from each other. If they drive together, then they'll both show up. And then it kind of became a thing where it's like, well, but then if that happens, he has to come because we need Bill here.
Yeah, I may have ended up being important, but everybody talked about Bill.
Yeah, well, because Bill had been there before.
Yes.
Bill was their producer.
And that happens sometime in late August, early September.
Yeah.
And at some point during the summer, I had asked you if you'd go out with me.
And I had
during the summer.
Yeah, and I had said no.
You had said no.
I had said no.
Why?
Yeah. Because we hadn't met in person.
Okay. So what changes in the wee morning hours of September 13th?
Yep.
When I asked you again, basically 3 weeks before I'm going to meet you. Mm-hmm. For 3.5 weeks before I'm going to meet you. And you said yes, which, by the way, I wasn't expecting, because I had asked you again since that first. I think this was the third time I'd asked you.
Third time's the charm.
Yeah, that's what it was. No, what was it?
I don't know.
Something had changed, though, because you said yes.
I did, but I think it was the conversation. I think it was basically, you're just like, hey, we're both going to be at Podtoberfest. We're both going to be in Michigan. We will meet. So why not? Like, why not agree now? And then we'll have a date when we're there. And so I think you just finally wore me down. I think you just finally broke me down. And I was like, ugh, fine.
Yeah, so I had a girlfriend all of a sudden who I had never met before.
Yeah.
Previously.
Yeah. Look, yeah, I mean, I guess that's because we had agreed to, like, this would be us dating. Like, we would start to date long distance because we hadn't met and we were still, you know.
It was going to be long distance anyway.
Yeah, it was. And I think that was also part of it. It was like, even if we did meet there, we were still living in two different places. So you're like, why not? Like, we've already been doing all these movie dates.
Yeah, we've been doing the dating thing. We're talking on a more regular basis.
Yeah, we were doing everything that dating implies except for the actual dating. So I think it was like, it would still be long distance. So I think that kind of helped, the thought that it was like, well, we'd still be apart.
Yes.
It would still be long distance dating. And yeah, we would meet in Michigan, but then we'd be surrounded by all the people and things like that. So yeah, I think I just was like, fine, I'll do it.
All right. So my part in this starts first. I get up, I go to work, I leave work, and I go get Bill. And I drive Bill from his house to my house.
Yeah.
By the way, while listening to the Orioles lose to the Blue Jays in a wild card game, in a one-game wild card game, which is only important because we're going to see Canadians, and none of that means anything to you then.
No.
No. Bill is reluctantly letting me listen to the game in the car.
Yeah.
And then,
although one thing to mention, what did you do that morning though? Because like you said, it was September the 13th, wee hours of the morning for you.
Oh, I took a screenshot when I had asked you. Yeah.
When I said yes, because
I took a screenshot.
Because we had been talking on the phone, but then we had hung up.
No, we hadn't hung up. Well, after everything.
Afterwards, yeah. You had texted me, and that's the text that you then screenshotted.
Yeah. No. She's got it wrong. No. When you said yes, and we hung up on that phone, I took a screenshot. That was it. That was period. And then it was years later when we were trying to figure out what our anniversary was that I found the screenshot and I texted you the screenshot.
Yeah, but what was the screenshot of?
It's literally just my home screen.
Oh, just the date of the time.
It's just my home screen. Just my home screen had done. Yeah. So Bill and I get up the next day, late.
Yeah, but my point was though that you commemorated the moment I said yes by taking a screenshot to be like, she said yes.
But fast forwarding the 3 weeks.
Yes.
I get Bill. Orioles are playing the Jays and lose. The next day, I get up, and Bill and I start our 14-hour journey from Pennsylvania, Michigan. Mm-hmm. You just hop on a plane.
Yeah.
And I think you beat us there by hours.
Oh, yeah. It was maybe a 4-hour flight, if even that.
So when did you get into Michigan?
It was... Oh, God, was it late the night before, or was it...
It was during the day, because we got there 2 nights...
Yeah, so I
not
think...
there yet.
So I think it was mid-afternoon.
Okay, so you have dinner with the guys. So don't forget, this is the height of Periscope.
Well,
and Bill and I...
But it was also, I think it was mid-afternoon.
You went out to dinner.
Or at least early afternoon, because we waited at the airport for Dave. Because I arrived first, but Dave was arriving shortly after me, like maybe an hour.
Dave was one of the Canadians that was flying.
Yeah, he was flying in. So we were very close. So rather than leave and then come back, we just hung out at the airport and waited for Dave.
Were you guys paying attention to our... Bill was periscoping occasionally from the passenger seat. Bill doesn't drive.
Yeah.
So we are slightly trying to document...
The journey
a bit. Are you paying attention at all to any of this?
I can't remember.
Okay.
I feel like I did... But considering that I was traveling at the same time, I couldn't keep track of all of it.
So Bill and I finally pull in at about 10 p.m., sorry.
Yeah.
11 p.m. It's like really late. Yeah,
because we had basically, we got Dave, You
guys went to dinner. Because I remember
I think we went straight from the airport, to meeting Jay at a restaurant.
Yeah.
Because Grant had both me and Dave, and then Jay was like, oh, let's all meet and we went to like a restaurant kind of place. And
then we pull up.
And then we had dinner and then went back to the house.
Yeah, we pull up to Grant's, where everybody was staying. And so this is all a pretense to say that during that second Podtoberfest, we hadn't gone public.
The only 2 people that knew we were dating were us.
Well, and Bill. Well, I told Bill.
Okay, you did. I didn't know. I didn't know you told Bill.
I told Bill during one of the 13 hours we were in the car together.
Yes. I didn't know this, but I had said we shouldn't tell anyone because I didn't want it to wind up on the show.
It is very much like, and that was a concern because it not only would have been on air, it would have derailed what we would have. It would have derailed all the work we had planned for the previous 6 months, and it would have just been the rest of the thing.
I didn't want it. We had such plans. We had hours, and there were schedules, and there was scripts, and there was we had planned it meticulously. And I was like, if we tell anyone, this is not going to go well.
So you and I then.
So you guys show up. We all come out of the house to say hi.
Mm-hmm.
And
I got a big hug from Grant.
Yeah. Well, Grant's just a hugger. He hugged us all.
I don't remember a hug from you during the initial.
Not during. No, I don't think we did. I think it was just kind of like a hi.
Meanwhile, I hugged Dave. I literally hugged everyone but you. I think I hugged Dave. I hugged Jay.
Well, I think I stayed on the porch maybe and just kind of waved? Or I don't remember exactly, but I remember hugging Bill.
Yeah,
though.
of course. So then we fast forward to the next day, which is the day before.
I think you got monopolized by Grant. In the meantime, I hugged.
Yeah, because it was still
Bill,
a game time decision. Like, is he really going to show up?
And we just went back into the house.
So, the next day is the day before we go live.
Yeah. Oh, and we're all staying at Grant's house, by the way. Like, we're all staying there. The thing is happening at Grant's house. Like, everything's set up there. He's setting up tables and all the equipment and all that.
And the day before, we did a tech trial.
Yep.
We went live for like an hour just to
test everything.
See, and then you, me, and Bill specifically, because Grant was doing some of the tech, we went through the 2 12 hours one final time.
We printed everything out.
We printed everything out.
I think we may have taxed Grant's printer. I think it may have run out of ink at one point. It ran out of paper.
No,
we printed so much.
And so I know it seems ridiculous for this internet podcast thing, but we were very busy that day before.
Yeah. We were still finalizing and writing certain things. Like, there was still
up until 11:30 at night when it was like, hey guys, we have to start at 8 or 9 of them. I don't remember. We went 8 to 8, I think. I think we went 8 to 8 or 9 to 9. Or it was 9 to 9 on Friday and 8 to 8 on Saturday. I don't remember.
It was something like that, yeah.
And so we went to bed, we got up, and we did the whole thing. That's what, and then Friday comes and we did 12 hours. During Friday's 12 hours, you and I are sharing a table.
We are. Off to one side.
With laptops in between us.
Just us two. The others are in a long table right next to us.
Yeah, because we had a mic, but we weren't on mic.
We were sharing a mic.
Yep.
We had one mic between the two of us. Because just in case one of us needed to hop on or say something or jump in or help out.
And you were in charge of the
whatever.
hashtags again, so you were doing that stuff.
I was. And we were both going to be a little bit more involved. Like, we were both going to be on air at some times and hosting certain things or helping with certain things.
And I bring up, and Gotham Lights did a thing.
Yep.
And we'll get to that. So during the first day.
Yep.
I definitely looked at you.
Several times.
And
what did you do when you looked at me several times?
I would wink at you.
Yeah.
And you would shake your head.
Yeah. Because I'm sitting there going, what are you doing winking at me for no reason and grinning like a doofus when the others are right there and don't know why you're winking at me? Because I was thinking he's going to give it away. They're going to be suspicious. They're going to be like, what's going on over there? Fine. There's this tension. There's this chemistry. There's fine. Stuff.
It's fine.
Like, my mind was...
No. So, by the way, after the first day...
Yeah. Plus, I knew myself. I knew, if you kept winking at me, I was going to start blushing or something. And you're like, what's wrong with her?
But after the first day, Grant's wife said something to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, not yet. I was like, just...
Yeah. She noticed. She noticed.
Because
she wasn't involved with anything.
So she could take in the spectacle
she
everything.
was observing.
Yes.
Plus, she's in she's in the field of psychology or something like that. I forget what she was in. So, but she was definitely good at reading people.
So, after the second day, where it's more of the same, I think we told everybody after the last hour went down and we were done and we did it and we celebrated. I believe that's when we told everybody. Because I remember Grant being even though it was his house.
He was the last
somehow
to know.
Grant was the last to know. And I remember him being like, what?
I feel like somebody came up and asked about it.
But it was after. So we were in the clear.
Not entirely. I remember somebody asking earlier on when we were still in the midst of it, But they were like, don't worry, I'm not going to say anything.
That might have been Paula.
Let's not tell Grant.
That could have easily been Paula.
Because somebody was like, let's not tell Grant.
So then Sunday, the Canadians went home because the next day was Thanksgiving for them on that Monday. And Sunday, we just kind of chilled.
Yeah, we didn't have any. The thing was over. We didn't really have to do anything. And we thought, well, we're here. Let's go on the date.
I think we went on Monday.
Did we?
Yeah.
Was Sunday just the
Sunday
relaxing
was
day
just
we went on Monday?
Sunday was just a relaxed day because I feel like most of the stuff we did, especially the museums, wouldn't have been open on a Sunday. We went to the museum. We went to the planetarium. We had lunch at the Science Museum.
I mean, they could have been open on a Sunday, but
that was our first.
Look,
the ticket's somewhere in this house.
Yeah. But you basically asked Grant, like, hey, what is there to do? And you said you wanted to take me out.
And we went on a date.
Yeah.
And then, it was definitely Monday because Tuesday we left.
Yeah.
And Monday ended with.
So I think Sunday was just us hanging out. I think we may have gone out again just as a small group, whoever was left.
And then Monday night, because you're going to the airport Tuesday morning and Bill and I are leaving Tuesday morning.
Yep.
And I don't know how it happened, but you and I end up sleeping in the same bed. Nothing happened, but we end up sleeping in the same bed, which was the worst possible thing because Tuesday night, like you're dead to the world. Like you actually fell asleep. And
you mean Monday night?
Monday night, yeah. You're dead.
Well, because we had come back from the date, we finished the date,
and then we met
with
everybody
Grant
else for dinner,
and the family, like his family, and we had dinner, and then we came back and we hung out. Wasn't that also Monday night? Wasn't that the it was the debate, right? It was the 2016 debate.
Yeah, and so
we were up late as well. So like after that, I was like, oh God, I need to go sleep.
So you and I are in the same bed, but like you are under the covers and asleep.
Yep.
I'm on top of the covers in like fever/chill. Like I got something
unbeknownst to me. Like I was sleeping. I knew nothing what was happening.
I got something, and I was when we went to bed. I told Grant I'd take you to the airport.
Yep.
At about 4 a.m. when you woke up.
Yeah.
And I was still awake.
It was an early flight. Yeah.
And I was still awake. I said, just wake up, Grant. I'm in no condition to do anything.
I took one look at you and went, you look like death. What
happened? So we hugged, but because I didn't feel well.
And we hung out like at breakfast and everything.
We didn't get our kiss at all.
No. We had held hands at the planetarium because we went into a show at the planetarium and it was dark and we were sitting in seats and everything. And I can't remember if I was the one that reached for your hand or if you were the one that reached for my hand, but then we were holding hands throughout like the whole planetarium show. So we'd done the whole hand-holding thing, hugging, kind of like, flirting stuff.
But no kiss. And then I didn't feel well, so I was like, I'm not doing that to her. She's got to get on a fucking flight.
Yeah, you're like, I'm not going to kiss her and give her my germs.
And so after you leave, I finally get like 2 hours of sleep.
Subsleep.
And I was like, Bill, let's just go halfway. We'll get there. So we get back and you and I are still dating. Like the long story of it is that all of that happens. We meet, we start dating, we have our first date, and you still are willing to keep dating me.
Yeah.
And so we keep going. And what happens next, because that's the fall again, is that you come to Pennsylvania by yourself.
In March. Yes.
Ahead of 17 inches of snow.
A fairly large snowstorm that I think I was not aware of was happening.
And your flight, which was going to be into my local airport, got moved to an airport an hour away because that flight got canceled.
Yeah, I get to the airport as I am getting the notification that my flight is canceled. So I'm at the airport because I had taken a shuttle. because my mom was going to work, so she couldn't take him to the airport. So I was like, no, I'll take a shuttle. It's fine. So I'm getting off the shuttle, and I get a text message on my phone saying my flight's canceled. And I'm like, well, crap. So I start freaking out a little bit, but I still go to the counter and say,
yeah, because you and I had both taken off for this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
I go in and I go up to the counter and say, I just got this message that my flight is canceled. What does this mean? And they're like, yeah, it looks like there's a storm coming in. And so they've shut down that airport. And I said, well, what can I do? And they're like, well, we can see if we can get you on a different flight. First they're saying like, well, you could go tomorrow. And I'm like, no, I have to go today. And I call you. Meanwhile, it's very early. It's very early in the morning. I think I wake you up.
Nah.
No?
Mm-mm. No, but I immediately like panicked because I'm like, wait, what?
Well, yeah, because I'm talking. I was like, my flight's canceled. They're literally saying that Allentown Airport, which is the airport I was flying into, is shut down. Yep. They're preparing for the snow. They're not letting any flights come in.
My favorite line. I was like, well, where can they send you to?
And so I ask him again what the options are, because I don't know these places. I've never really been to Pennsylvania.
He says Avoca.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, yeah, do that one. Because that one is fine, because that's only less than an hour. That's less than 2 hours away, we'll go with. And so I was able to...
Yeah, but didn't he say like Scranton? He said
it would have been Avoca on the thing at the time, I think. But yeah, Scranton, or whatever.
I think Wilkes-Barre was. I don't remember, but there were a couple places mentioned. And you said no, go with that one. That one's like it'd be like an hour and a half or something, a couple hours maybe. I'll drive and get you.
And I went up early and got Krispy Kreme, which you didn't care for.
I wasn't a big fan of Krispy Kreme.
But I went up early because I got to hang out with our now mutual friend Chris.
Yeah.
Ahead of time, because he was working at the college at the time, so I saw him, and then I picked you up, and we came back here.
Because for some reason, even though the airports are fairly the same size, that one was not shutting down for the storm.
They're not fairly the same size. No, not even remotely close.
Which one's bigger?
Ours is.
Really?
Yeah, by a lot.
Well, then that's what I think surprised me was like, why is this airport remaining open?
Well, and now you know, because now you've seen what happens to Philly when it rains. That's a different thing. So the other thing is, we get off the turnpike. We're basically close to my house. Mm-hmm. And I go, and we pull into the grocery store.
Yeah.
And I said,
because I'm basically, I have flown in ahead of this storm.
Yep.
I know there's a storm coming, and
by the way, the models are saying a feet, like at this point, so we don't know exactly how bad it is. We just know it'll be bad.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, all right, what's your favorite? What's your cereal? Like, what do you want to eat?
Yeah.
Like,
you're like, we're stopping at the store. I'm like, do you think we need to? Like, because it's been years since I had been living in Arizona for, 15 years by that point, about. And so I don't know what to expect from an East Coast snowstorm because I haven't had an East Coast snowstorm in forever. So I was slightly confused, but you're like, no, we are stopping at the store and we're getting milk and we're getting eggs and we're getting bread and we're getting a few things.
We didn't get milk and eggs and bread.
No, I thought we did.
No. I'm not one of those people. I've never been one of those people.
But you definitely got things like that.
But we got stuff.
Used to prepare stuff and some breakfast stuff. Yeah. We did do that.
And then you were here for a week, and I had planned to show you where I lived.
Yeah.
You saw my house.
We got to the house
as it started snowing.
Yep.
And we woke up to about 8 inches, and it just kept snowing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
it's so much snow.
I feel like we dug out by about 2 or 3 days later because we had dinner with my father. Mm-hmm. You got to meet him.
Yep.
But because of schedules,
I met both parents separately.
It was the next day or 2 days later that we had lunch with my mother.
Yeah.
And I feel like we did go back up to Scranton.
We did.
And you met...
and I met Chris.
You met Chris. And you met Zapata.
Mm-hmm.
And then Yeah, and then
that was basically it. Like, you really didn't get to show me much because of the snow.
And then you came back that summer.
July.
July.
With my mom.
With your mother.
Mm-hmm.
I almost killed your mother. I don't
It's
use
weather related.
It's
weather related.
I don't use air conditioning usually.
Yeah. Well, and the house doesn't have central air, and that's what we're used to in Arizona because you can't live without central air.
You also are used to a quote unquote dry heat. So your mother gets off the plane.
Yeah.
You get here. You sat down on the couch with me. Your mother sat down on the love seat, and your mother drank 3 bottles of water in 15 minutes.
Yeah. She was feeling the heat and the humidity. Yeah.
The humidity was killing your mother.
Yeah.
And so I said, do you want me to turn the air on?
Yeah.
And your mother, who originally said no, was like,
no, it was fine. And then finally she was like, no. I need some air.
So I actually did show you historic Bethlehem.
Yeah, that's when we saw everything. You took
not
us to
everything, but a lot of things.
a lot. You took us to the steel stacks.
Yeah, a bunch of stuff.
You took us to the casino.
That's 2017.
Yes.
We didn't go to Podtoberfest the third year.
No.
It had changed quite a bit.
It had changed, and we also weren't that heavily involved anymore.
No, but you are doing a show at this time.
I have a podcast.
Now you're doing Gotham Lights, and this is only important because I'm dating you. Mm-hmm. I start watching Gotham. Mm-hmm. And
you were on the show,
I was a guest on the show a couple times.
Yeah.
And occasionally I sat in for you.
Yeah.
And so I think it is in
and at the same time, we were also guest starring on other people's podcasts because several of the people that we knew in our podcast circle had also started podcasts.
Did you come a third time? No,
it was just the 2 times.
It was just the 2 times, and then.
But at some point after that second visit, for that summer, you had started to ask me, would I move in here?
Yeah.
Would I move in with you?
Yeah.
Would I move across the country?
Yeah.
and come live with you?
Yeah.
And so we had started to discuss it, and I made the decision to say...
You were a big fan of Four Seasons. Like, she got one instance of 17 inches of snow and was like, yeah, I'm all for this.
I did immediately fall in love with Pennsylvania. It reminded me a lot of Germany, which I was very used to. I have family in Germany. I went there plenty of times. And so the climate was very similar. The forests looked very similar. Like, it was all just, yeah, that seems good. So I was liking the idea of moving to Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And then started to seriously consider it. And planned my move. I work for a relocation company. I hired one of our moving suppliers to come pack everything up.
And that was so. But here's the thing, though. That happens in 2017.
More so 2018.
Well, 2018 is when you moved, but we started talking about it in 2017.
Vaguely, but I didn't seriously start considering it until 2018.
2018, and it's in 2018 that you do move in the fall.
In October.
Mm-hmm. Close to the anniversary of our first date. Because I remember that being a thing. I think you were here in time for it. I don't remember.
No, I wasn't. I came in I was here for around when Podtoberfest would have happened.
Okay.
Our anniversary was in September.
No, I'm saying but the anniversary of our first date.
Oh, yeah. Because that would have been around. I was here for that. I think I got here like either the day of or the day after.
And so in preparation for your coming here, mm-hmm. despite the fact that I've been single for 2 years, living in this house by myself, I looked around.
Single but dating.
In early 2018.
Uh-huh.
And I went, I don't have room for another person. I just have a lot of stuff. So I started downsizing to make room for you because I was like, well, I just don't. Yeah, I wasn't a hoarder, but like houses have a way of filling up. Mm-hmm. And so I in 2018, as you're thinking about it, and I'm like, she's going to come. It's fine.
Well, yeah, but like I had to like discuss it with work, and because at that time there was no remote working.
Yeah.
It wasn't as big as it was after the pandemic. So I had to kind of convince my work, like, hey, I'm thinking about moving to Pennsylvania. I would like to keep working for you guys and keep my job. Do you think we could work something out where I could work remotely and work from home, basically? Because at the time I was thinking, like, we mostly do stuff online. We can do phone calls online. I'm doing a lot of stuff via email. Like, I can do what I do at home, even though it wasn't that big of a thing yet. And because I was an awesome employee and had just great customer service scores and was a valuable employee and they loved me, they agreed. They said, yeah, if you want to do this, we'll work it out so that you can work remotely.
And so I'm at this time, our liner notes is a part of our circle. Mm-hmm. I did an episode with Chris for you.
Yep.
For road trip songs because you were going to ship your stuff, but you were going to drive so you could bring your car.
Yeah.
And so, I made, and in addition to that episode, which Chris made sure to time so it was out for your trip, I made you a separate playlist as well.
Yeah.
And so you're driving across the country. Mm-hmm. And you'll have to stay tuned for the next episode to find out what happens next.
Dun, dun, dun.
Okay. So this is only half of the story. The other half will be the next episode, and that will contain our nuptials, I promise. But let me be the first to admit that this podcast, not this episode, but this podcast is possible because of the love and support that Stefanie gives me. She makes all of this possible because not only does she want to support my creative endeavors, she does, she happens to be one of those many people who thought I should have started a podcast well before I did. And in turn, I still think she should get back on the mic herself, but getting her on this show may be the closest anyone will get to having her on mic for a while. She did, for a time, stream on twitch.tv/FromBrainToKeyboard, but now you're more likely to find me on that channel. If you want more Steph, and many of you probably want her more than me, just say so. I'm sure if enough of you reach out, she'll at least come back on this podcast again more often, aside from just next week that I told you about. And perhaps you will be able to convince her to do her own show, as I have been unsuccessful. Also, while the music for this episode was, as always, provided by Henno Heitur, he also sent in a message.
My dear friends, on this illustrious, illuminous, some might call it momentous occasion, I am reminded of a story about an insecure Martian who, while courting a slightly bitchy philosopher dream chick, presented her with this gift.
I made a little riff for her, and I played that little riff for her. I said, here's a riff that I made for you. 5, 4, 3, 2.
Inspired by the insecure Martian who courted the slightly bitchy philosopher dream chick, I too have written a riff for you. And as you go forward, dear friends, on this new adventure in a relationship that really is going to be about the same, but you got a new title and you didn't get a raise. But this riff will represent pretty much nothing, and it's analogous of absolutely nothing in regard to the complexities of a human relationship. But I bet I'm the only one that made you a riff. Well, congratulations. I love you both, and I'm really just looking forward to celebrating in person with you.
Thanks, Henno. And thank you for listening to the Palmer Files, episode 138. And now for the official business. The Palmer Files releases every 2 weeks on Tuesdays. If you're still listening, I encourage you to join the discussion. You can find all related ways to contact my lovely wife Stephanie and myself in the show notes. The music for this episode was provided by the lovely Henno Heitur. Email can be sent to this show at thepalmerfiles@gmail.com. And remember, your home for all things Agent Palmer is agentpalmer.com. All right, Stephanie, my wife.
My wife.
Do you have one final question for me?
I do. When you asked me that third time to go out with you,
Yep.
how confident were you that I was going to say yes, given that I hadn't said yes up until that point?
Oh, I was convinced it was a no until Michigan.
Really?
Yeah, I was very shocked you said yes, but I was going to ask anyway. I don't know what possessed me to ask, but I was very much,
we had some what I would consider fairly romantic conversations.
And
I mean,
some in-depth conversations.
Yeah, and I don't mean like sexual in nature. I just mean like
talking
about really important like questions.
No, by the time I asked you out the third time, we had talked about like, would you want to have kids? We had talked about we had those deep, what I call college conversations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you think about the universe and the things that are in it?
Yep.
But we had also talked about kids, and we had talked about family, and we had talked about all that. So all that's already, I'm not saying we still had things to learn, but like we knew each other. But yeah, I asked full well knowing that the answer was probably still no until we meet in Michigan. Okay. But I asked anyway.
Yeah.
Because at the time, you do that.
you just try. Why not?
Why not?